M.Org Society. M.Org Society presents articles of enlightening subjects of our era of civilization. The title to the series is The Meta-Science of Memory. Memories of Existence, Part 2. Existential Memories of Life and History of Transmortal Life, Civilization, and the Afterlife. Subjects of The Science of Existentialism. Subjects include memory, in energy, concepts of conscious matter, concepts of conscious energy, the meta-science of memory, the metaphysics of memory, trans-realm physics, trans-realm civilization, transmortality, metaphysics, and meta-science, introduced by M.Org Society. Metacore. This knowledge would theorize that the concept of metacore is a place or realm where the entirety of the matter of existence forms a consciousness. In this knowledge, the term energy is used to describe its various forms, relating to its general meaning. In physics, chemistry, and other sciences, the forms of energy are sound, electricity, gravitation, radiation, and light. Primarily the motion of energy, in the matter, or the material of existence, such as the objects, of the worlds, and of space, can possibly form an effect of consciousness. This is the phenomena of consciousness in energy, by the motion of energy through material things. This conscious energy could possibly form itself in some place in the space of existence by the incident of nature. This place would be called metacore. By theory, metacore can be some material place in space, being the phenomena where the primary consciousness of all energy has incidentally manifested itself. An incident of some material location formed somewhere in the space of existence. Further understand or observe what metacore possibly is by visualizing how a consciousness can form in energy, even where there is no structure or shape, in matter or in material. Metacore, continued. The theory operates that energy would have consciousness, even where the material of the planets, of the universe, has no biological life or structure on them. This is relative to concepts such as the constant motion of energy. The impossibility of motionlessness is in existence, and the impossibility of non-existence of conscious life in the space of existence. We can also understand this phenomena by visualizing how conscious energy can be present without biological life. This conscious energy can be present throughout the objects on planets and in the space of existence, being different from how there is consciousness in beings in the form of biological life on planets. Base molecular activity. As other theory of molecular function, actively changing base molecular structure can be the phenomena of conscious energy. As we understand this changing and shifting of electrical activity, and the changing of molecular chemistry at the base of the molecular structure of the elements, We can reason this to be the phenomena of moving conscious energy. This changing and shifting of molecular activity, actively changing at the base of molecular structure, occurring to record effects in information or intelligence, can be a part of the phenomena that this conscious energy uses to operate memory. Assembly of material for memory in energy. Thinking deeper about this concept of energy, we can reason that there can be conscious energy when the objects of the planets of the universe have no definitive shape, or is not assembled in any logical way. Logical assembly of objects is not then necessary for there to be consciousness in energy. Logical or conceptual shaping and construction of material objects, particularly relative to there being a civilization on planets, is also not necessary for energy to have consciousness. Memory of conscious beings and assembly of material for memory in energy continued. It is helpful if we make implication to the concept that conscious beings, such as ordinary biological life and people, have memory in various forms. We consider this because we would assume that the conceptual assembly and shaping of material objects is ordinarily needed for there to be some form of memory, relative to the fact that information is grafted, carved, shaped, or written on materials to be recorded as memory and later read by another person or being. A good example of this is how computer chips have recorded memory, which is information grafted into them on a microscopic level, and how the cells of the human mind have information biologically grown and shaped into them as recorded memory. So, is the assembly of material necessary for the universe to have consciousness in energy? Material-less consciousness and memory in energy, and material-less independent consciousness. Consciousness of energy, or conscious energy, can exist without material, or the substantiality of material. Considering the massness of the entirety of a conscious energy of the universe, a conscious being can manifest, without there being present any material. Terminology used to describe this concept can be material-less conscious energy, material-less memory in energy. One concept reasons that traces of information can be left by living creatures or people, where memory is being recorded as information in and on objects, on a molecular or quantum scale, or by some other phenomena merely described by our known science, possible as a dynamic operation of various phenomena. This is an efficient theory, reasoning that consciousness of energy, or conscious energy, and memory in energy is possible without there being material objects, or structure in material objects in the space of existence. It is proclaimed by various religions that every person has a soul that can be separated from his body, and that this soul can be conscious and alive without the body, and that the soul could have substance and conscious ability in the afterlife. Or we could say, after the biological material body has died. Evidence of material-less consciousness. Where then, is there evidence of material-less consciousness, which we can observe? Cognitive function in biology. Less material biological creatures have a mind and other body parts that allow them to think and to remember. The parts of the mind operate various physics, with use of electricity and mechanical function, to create cognitive function, and also to record information. Cognitive function in biology. Less material reasons the possibility of there being a form of cognitive function in this conscious energy, which can happen without the presence of any biological systems. Assembly of structure. Non-necessity. Assembly of the structure of matter is not needed for there to exist cognitive function. Material plane. Shapelessness refers to the material planets, or the plane of the universe, as being in a state of shapelessness. Subalternate theories. This comprehensive science of metacore and the theory of conscious energy includes additional, conceptually alternative, subordinate theories. More elaboratively explained, the comprehensive theory of metacore and the theory of conscious energy includes additional subtheories that are factorially and logically subordinate to the prime and comprehensive concept of metacore and conscious energy. Structure. Structure is referred to as a logical formation of an object, particularly with logical shape, which can have mechanism. Structure being necessary for memory in energy. A subalternate theory. This concept theorizes that structure in objects are necessary in material for there to exist functions of consciousness in energy. Logical structure and shape must be formulated for the energy or connecting energy to form a function of consciousness. Shape and structure establishments necessity for consciousness in energy. Energies would connect by various channeling and mechanisms, and other connectivity for energy to form consciousness. The conscious beings may have to, or not have to, have embodiment in material substance, or materialize to operate as self-conscious beings. They could be beings with bodies, of a nature, of pure energy. Memory, in energy. By shape and structure. This concept reasons that material objects or structures, having a logical or conceptual shape, on some plane is necessary for the function of memory to occur by this conscious energy. The objects could assumably be used to somehow shape or formulate the information of the energy. On Earth, computer technology, such as microprocessors, use electronic functions to store, calculate and transfer information. A relatively similar and complex phenomena can occur in these structures to manage functions of memory by the conscious energy. Parallel world or parallel objects, necessity for memory in energy. As like the phenomena where conscious energy uses objects to operate consciousness and have memory. Parallel worlds can exist as a necessity for conscious energy function and memory in energy. Energy connectivity across the universe to sustain biological life can be a complex dynamic process may be needed in order to sustain connectivity across the universe as a natural physics necessary to sustain the function of biological life, and other conscious life. Mathematical symmetry. In objects and worlds. In the space of existence. Another concept reasons that, some dynamic function, of a mathematical symmetry across, the entire universe, is natural and is necessary of physics, for the operation of conscious life, biological life, or consciousness of energy. This includes, that there is parallel events on other worlds. Reasoning by this concept, notions such complexity, that parallel objects on other worlds, acts as a duplicator, and or recorder, of similar events and phenomena, to record events. Or, it is acting as, a natural manifestation of physics. There can also be a phenomena, of trans-world energy, connectivity. As the connectivity, of parallel worlds. The location, of metacore. The energy of metacore, would function as a conscious energy, that expands across the entirety of the space of existence. A physical location of metacore can manifest, as an extreme and marvelous phenomena, of nature. Conscious energy could have somehow assembled itself, in a certain place, in space. Reasoning of this theory can notion, that some dynamics of relative concepts, such as free transmutation of conscious energy, various materializations, active transmutations of objects, and embodiments, of conscious beings, in incident, would have caused, the assembly of this location of space, called metacore. Metacore would function as the prime source of conscious energy. A physical location of metacore, by incident, would have formulated, by some natural miraculous phenomena, in some location of space. This location of metacore, can be a phenomena of a civilization, operating the prime activity of the conscious energy of existence, where this civilization functions by various marvelous physics. Reasoning of the concepts, of there being, a physical location of metacore, must make appropriate implication to the theory that the distance of space is a circular path, and is not infinite. Observation, of conscious energy. Observe or imagine the function of conscious energy. As life and consciousness happens, as energy is in motion, containing intelligence and memory in energy. Visualize the material objects of space, of planets and moons, having no motion of life, or any apparent life, on them, such as ordinary biological life. And yet, the conscious energy of metacore, can still be present. Consciousness of energy, can be viewed, as an essence, with connecting energy, expanding across the entire space of existence. An energy, that has memory, and consciousness, that is present, everywhere, or is omnipresent. Motionlessness is impossible. Non-existence, is impossible. And when was the beginning, of motion? The theory of motionlessness reasons that motionlessness in existence is not possible. That there has to be motion in existence. Figuring out the point of the beginning, of all motion in the universe, is a prime factor to calculate, the beginning of all existence. The beginning of existence, should be efficiently understood as the beginning of first conceptualization, or assimilation, including the conceptualization of physics and its principalities, and the conceptualization of consciousness and the first conscious being. Non-existence is relatively impossible in near logical relation to how motionlessness in existence is impossible. On our plane of physics, things may appear to move faster, related to a function of perception, and how our minds operate to experience our physical nature. On another plane of physics, our conscious energy may operate in some greater marvel of capability, probably being much faster, and of a higher elemental capacity. The interactive nature of things that function the atmosphere of this realm would be strange and perceived by us as phenomena. There would be bodies of energy that are conscious. There would be structures that are natured of energy, created by the beings of this atmosphere. Quantum physics, of its advanced science, explains these concepts, as it describes the nature of this physics phenomena in a more intricate view of the functions of matter, far smaller than the microscopic scale. Motionlessness is impossible, continued. The interactive nature of things that function in the atmosphere of this realm would be strange and perceived by us as a phenomena. There would be bodies of energy that are conscious. There would be structures that are natured of energy, created by the beings of this atmosphere. Quantum physics, of its advanced science, explains these concepts, as it describes the nature of this physics phenomena in a more intricate view of the functions of matter, far smaller than the microscopic scale. The concept of beginning is impossible. Non-existence is impossible. Reasoning that it is impossible for there to be nothing in existence at one time, since in all time, referring to any time in existence, there cannot be a time when nothing exists, meaning there cannot be a beginning of time, or a time before the beginning of time when nothing existed. Elaborating more on this logic, reasoning forms that there cannot be nothing before a point defined as the beginning, which factors how anything before a beginning of time would be non-existence, a time which is when nothing existed. Yet, we understand that there are beginning of things by what we have experienced, because we remember that there was a beginning of ourselves. Again, why is the beginning of existence impossible, while understanding that there was a beginning of us, and a beginning of all of many conceptualizations, and the constructs of our world, and the universe? The circular path of space. The distance of space itself, by logic, is a circular path, and is not infinite. It has no endpoint, but only circles around, to a point relative or like, where it began. As an object travels across the immense distances of space, with intent to find an endpoint, we will find that the path of space is not straight. The path of space is only virtually straight, or generally straight, and is not absolutely straight. So the distance of space do not particularly end. It only circles around, to return across a point where it began. Parallel worlds. Parallel worlds are often thought of relating to the concept of dimensions. Parallel worlds, in this knowledge, is taught to actually be planets of the universe, where life and civilization, on two or more planets, is happening in near symmetry and time. Parallel world intended formation. Parallel worlds can exist where the concept of the master beings created parallel worlds for the assistance in keeping memory, and maybe some other more complex scientific operations of existential management. The complex scientific operations probably would be something of the management of activities in material civilization. Mathematical metasymmetry of parallel world incident. Parallel worlds can occur as a nature of some natural phenomena with mathematical symmetry of the entirety of the formation of the objects of the space of existence. Dimension science. What dimensions ordinarily thought of is the actually function of parallel worlds. Parallel worlds is taught, in this knowledge, to be an actual planet. So, traveling to another dimension would be referring to traveling to another planet that is much like ours, with simultaneously occurring functions and events of even people and souls that are much like and similar, if not virtually the same, as themselves. The incident of metacore, a location by natural assimilation, and the existential entirety of conscious energy. Referring back to the location of metacore, we are reasoning that the entirety of existential conscious energy had to have naturally formulated or assimilated at some point in space, as it must be a physical location. This assimilation of energy, as the master conscious energy, positions itself at this point as an incident of natural phenomena. One master being of conscious energy. Conscious energy and memory in energy. It is efficient to first think of the master conscious energy or conscious energy as being formed into one being. Dealing with one master being in fathoming is efficient to first visualize the concepts of this conscious energy, where there are things and events that occur, considering the movement of energy. Thinking of the entirety of the space of existence, in which at the same time, would be not an event of happening in time, but only in conceptualization. And these events can be recorded in the energy, that the conscious energy also has memory, describing this as memory in energy. Conscious energy. Objects in the universe are understood to be made of various chemical substances. These substances do not necessarily have conscious life in it. To be more specific, ordinarily materials of the planet is considered lifeless if there is no organic or biological life present. Energy. Energy, taught in this knowledge, is any phenomena that is effective in the activities of life, which is ordinarily in motion. It can be any active medium, particularly a special phenomena that is present but is not the material substances we ordinarily perceive as objects. Electricity through elements, or radiation, gravitation, vibration, sound, and light, can be defined as the active mediums of energy. Separation of the master conscious energy and the separation of master conscious beings. We have reasoned that there can be conscious energy and a great master conscious energy being. And it's also possible that separate master conscious beings can have a function of equality and of disposition over the physics, phenomena, and the fate of conscious life in the universe and amongst themselves. Separate master conscious energy refers to there also being separate master conscious beings responsible and or associated with the beginning manifestations and matter conceptualizations of existence. Active transmutational phenomena. Active transmutational phenomena is an operation of constant transmutation by the intent and ability of a conscious being, or by a function of nature, by objects and materials of the universe, of even the mass objects of space, such as whole stars, planets or asteroids. The active transmutation is the constant changing of chemical elements. It includes density changes in the atomic structure, as from one metal to one more atomically denser, from gases to gases and even from metals to gases. Actively changing from one to another in some phenomena. Theoretically then, these master beings of metacore can have a physiology of active transmutation. One great question is, can God or the master beings undo or alter the physics of our current material existence? The theory of metacore as the transphysics material realm. Metacore can be the transphysics material realm, defined in Memories of Existence. The theory that energy, in any transmaterial realm, has memory. Conscious energy, and memory, in energy and material plane shapelessness. Memory of consciousness will be possible without existence of a material plane. Construction of structure, or structures with shape, in any location in the universe. The consciousness can operate in an energy and have memory. Memory in energy. Where there is consciousness in people and biological organisms, where they are able to have memory by the recording of information on the materials that make up their bodies and mind. There also is the possibility that memory can be formed by a phenomena without consciousness, or without our bodies, or without material, where memory is recorded about one body in some other place, though that body, or its material, is not present or assembled. This can be memory that exists from the within energies of matter. The energy would lead to a master source, where there is the memory of all life. As we understand, the changing and shifting of electrical activity, and the changing of molecular chemistry at the base of the molecular structure of the elements, we can reason this to be the phenomena of conscious energy managing memory. This changing and shifting of molecular activity, actively changing at the base of molecular structure, occurring to record effects in information or intelligence, can be a part of the phenomena that this conscious energy uses to operate memory. Memory, in energy forms. The term memory operates in this knowledge as a memory within any energy form in nature that is omnipresent, or channeled from any location or in any object. So, there can be memory in the energy by the motion of matter, and memory in radioactive, electric, sound, and light energy. First enactment memory. From the absolute beginning of existential conceptualization, of enactment existential events, to the definite points of enactment ends, being defined as points of repeating events, is referred to by the term first enactment memory. A memory designated to be contained in a strain of memory. The point where the comprehension of all enactment events repeats themselves can be identified as the point of the end of enactment. Repeating events. The master beings would manipulate the fate of the events on worlds, with intent to control the fate of the world, particularly in weight of some ideal or some occurrence of an enactment event to occur before considering the enactment event. A repeat of enactment events across the space of existence. The record of information of these enactment events are identified as a memory strain. Reenactment and controlled reenactment. Understanding the concept of reenactment, and that reenactment events are not anymore existentially incidental, that the memory strain of a reenactment are of beings whose material fate during that enactment was manipulated. This first enactment memory strain is the most ideally desired of all memory strains. To have recorded the absolute entirety of the first enactment, from the defined beginning of the enactment to the definitive point of repeating enactment events, is the prime memory strain, being very useful for many of life's various reenactment operations. For eternity, it contains intelligence of uncanny manifestations and happenings, of existential events that were natural yet random and uncontrolled. This prime memory strain is useful and needed for the many intelligence operations for eternity. The first enactment memory strain can have a form of sentimental value to people and beings who were alive and intelligently aware, who would be acting in sciences that would use the knowledge of the memory of their lifetimes during their enactment. It would be a priceless treasure of sentimental value in anyone. Dispensation. The existential beginning of the first enactment of civilization to the comprehensive end point can be designated the term dispensation. Remember, the end point of an enactment is the starting point of the repeated effects of enactment event. Additionally, a memory strain is formed of the comprehension of both the enactment events and soul memory. So, can the master being save the memories and memory strains of the uncanny first manifestations of existence. Repeat effects of enactment events and memory strains of souls, where there is the possibility of the relative concepts of soul variation, enactment, and repeated enactment events. There is also the possibility that even the souls of enactment, with their enactment memory, will virtually repeat themselves. It would be ideal if the elemental entirety of existential enactment, can be recorded, by this memory strain. Information of the event would logically include, the comprehension and intricacy of elements such as, the positions, of the objects and creations, the course of events, and the memories, of the souls of creatures, and people. Memory strain. An introduction of the concept. Every person or creature that comes into existence forms a path of memory, of the events that it creates, while it was alive. The person or creature will, also develop, cognitive memory. From having a mind, and being conscious. Memory strain, then can refer to, the path of all memory that the person or creature formed. Meaning, every intricate movement of matter, that made up the person or creature. Memory strain could particularly refer to, only the time that the person, was substantially conscious. It could also refer to a designated time, that the creature will be alive throughout all time, with implication of conceptually being alive, during a designated time, in any world. The memory strain concept is important to understanding. To support knowledge on how permanent existential memory is recorded somewhere. The memory strain concept can be the key element, for which the master energy beings store memory. The logic would be that somewhere, the memory strain of our lifetime is somewhere with the master beings. Soul variation. The importance of soul variation, notions that, if we know that it is possible, to create and store, a definite existential limit, of all possible souls, we can rule out the fact that there will not be a possible soul, that fail to exist. With these factors, of soul variation being true, that, all possible variations of souls will eventually exist, we can assure that, our own soul will always exist. And that, if we did not exist before this time, that there is a scientific factor to assure that, our soul will have eventually, come into existence. Truly understanding soul variation, we would then realize that infinite soul variation needs to be a false concept. Because if it's possible, to make infinite souls, then it is also possible to not exist. The fading strain concept, or the fading strain of non-existence, infinite soul variation, also relates to the theoretical concepts of fading strains, which is a concept of non-existence, a theory of the concept that notions, because of the ever-moving, evolving, and changing motion of space and matter, that the memory strain of an individual soul will eventually fade away, because of some mathematical factor. Calculating, a variable of conceptualization, into infinity. Transmutational beings. An active transmutational phenomena. Transmutation of elements, is the phenomena where elements can change from one form to another. It is the function of physics, where molecular change causes a different stable element. The elements of the periodic table are more emphasized in the science of chemistry. There is a lot of phenomena that can be thought of about a nature of being transmutational by the laws of physics. The master beings can be thought of to have a nature of being transmutational, while still being whole and conscious. Transmutational function would be the nature of its mind and body. This transmutational phenomena of the body of a master being can be more understood by the term active transmutation. Active transmutation. Active transmutation would be a phenomena where a point of location of an object or a being undergo constant molecular transmutation, where the master beings are transmutational in nature. They can also therefore have transmutational disposition over the elements. Religion and the concept of God. Religions often describe God as being omnipotent, omnipresent, and all-elementally powerful. Logically then, the phenomena of active transmutation would describe some relative nature of the concept of God. Transmutational disposition can be the ability to freely alter and change the chemistry, state, or phase of the elements of matter. Psychophysiology of memory in energy, or mind physiology of memory in energy. The human mind, in its physiology, can store memory, as information is written, grafted, shaped, or grown on the material of the mind. This is a phenomena of memory, only by the use of physical material. The physical mechanisms, and the mechanics of robotics, of material organisms, is necessary to operate functions of memory, by the way of physiology. People are conscious and living, only by what we perceive to be tangible, meaning that, we know they are conscious, because we can see them and touch them. These vessels of organisms, and their parts, are constructed and shaped, in some logical way, to have biological robotic functions, where self-consciousness, and memory is possible. Formed by cognitive ability. Where there is cognitive memory, there is also memory, in energy. About our bodies, and our lives. Outside of the physiology, of our bodies and mind. Consciousness without the body. The bodiless consciousness theory. The continued theory of consciousness and memory of a soul. Without material, or a body. As there is self-consciousness, when the mind is in motion, in its biorobotic, organic functions, there is a phenomena of consciousness possible. Without the material of the mind and body. Transmortality and transmortal life. The effect of being alive is realized only by what we know now, as we perceive and experience life. And we know that people and living organisms die. Transmortality is the state of being alive, or the ability to be alive, for various periods of time. Transmortal life are then life forms with transmortality. Transmortality is not particularly the ability of being immortal. It could mean, it is a phenomena of being both mortal and immortal. Observation of principality. Observation of the principalities of physics can begin by visualizing and imagining what controls and determines the state or phase of matter, from being solid, liquid or gas. Dispensation. Dispensation is understood in this knowledge to be a designated phase of the enactment of the comprehension of existential civilization, or of a vast civilization, or the substantiality of existential civilization. Dispensation should only occur as a natural event, defined as the beginning and ending of a civilization. Only some possible group of master beings, with disposition over the fate of civilization, can appropriately define the dispensation of a civilization. Dispensation can be related to a definitive end of an evolution phase, or the beginning and end of a race, or the ending of a civilization phase, due to a decision relating to new evolutions or changes, for the coming reenactment by operations and management from the master beings of metacore. Observation of dispensation scenarios of reenactment for operations of evolution. If certain new evolutions in people are available, then they are resourceful and allowing the current civilization to continue in its defective state of enactment. Realizing much suffering and destruction is happening, it would be a great waste, and new dispensation by reenactment would be much more ideal. A particular factor to point out is that certain greatly adverse psychological defects, consistent in the psychology of the ordinary human mind during this era, would be eliminated in the new civilization. New humans, after this dispensation, will have valuable evolutions in them, made by trans-realm scientific advancements, existentially factored. It is also relatively important to consider that the new assimilation of new civilization will be possibly operating by some basics of the laws of civil elementalism. Covenant. The function of covenant and the relativity of existential principality and covenant refer to dispensation by the designation of reenacted civilization, by factors of evolutions and natural ending. The concept of covenant is appropriately defined as the operation of the establishment of vital laws established for civilization, based on existential calculation and management of the occurrence of certain adverse scenarios that should not occur, an opportunity for greater ideals of the experience or simulation of life as an intelligent being. Covenant can be established based on an operation set out to existentially prevent certain defective events from occurring, or controlling a new ideal of events to occur on worlds by the master beings. A covenant is a powerful law, relativistic to some highly operating existential principality, phenomena, or function in the nature of existential civilization. Ultimate strain variation development. The ultimate strain variation development is the calculation and prediction of all the possible and ultimate memory strains of enactment event memory, or soul memory. To calculate highly complex scientific prediction, evolution of the master beings is appropriate for the master beings to properly reconstruct the biologies of life, of the new civilization, of the new dispensation. Ultimate strain variation is a priceless information of existential laws. Necromancy. A feature concept. Fathom the scientific concept where an advanced civilization, would tamper with. An advanced science of necromancy, with advanced technology. To imagine the vast possibilities of the science. Considering both the advantages and the adversities. In conclusion, this ends our article on the meta-science of memory. Memories of Existence, Part 2. As it has discussed, the meta-science and metaphysics of memory, which includes the following concepts of the source of all existential memories, the master beings responsible for the management of existential memories. Consciousness, in energy. Without material, or the ordinary biology, material-less consciousness and material-less memory. Memory, in energy. And consciousness, in energy. The science of enactment, the science of reenactment. And other relative subjects. I hope this literature is enlightening to you. Continue to listen to these recordings.